Hey, what's up, guys? I brought the booze.
Hey, man, pass one over here. I brought the barbecue.
What up, guys? What are we watching today? Wait, don't tell me. We're gonna watch Uncle Buck, aren't we?
What?
Oh, God.
Hey, how about this? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No!
Hey, wait, hear me out. The Next Generation.
Really? Guys.
Come on.
Grab some grub and a beer and feast your eyes on this.
Oh, damn.
Ah, all right. Dimebag, pop that in.
Hey, kiddies. We're back with another episode of The Final Guys. Joining me, as always, is my fellow ghouls crawling up from the radioactive sewer, Toxic J.
I just love this. I fucked that up. I'm just crazy about this store.
And the chainsaw-wielding madman, SoCal Letterface.
Hey, I remember him. One time we got in this fight and I kicked his ass.
And, of course, you have myself, Dimebag the Clown, son of a whore. Yo, TJ, why don't you open up that casket and tell us what we have in store today?
We have that gruesome, underrated, crappy film, trashy film. It's called Intruder from 1989.
Good evening, Walnut Lake shoppers.
It's closing time.
The store will be closing in 15 minutes.
But the night crew still has work to do.
Oh my God, we're gonna get in so much trouble.
Because there's one last customer who isn't satisfied.
No, this creep keeps calling her. He's driving us nuts.
I'm just crazy about this store.
Intruder.
Before we get into this, guys, how are you guys doing today?
Doing good, brother. It's been a long day, but...
Any bumps, bruises?
Oh, we always got bumps.
Yeah,
Clowning around?
Always clowning around. Got some events coming up. Getting ready mentally and physically.
Yeah, man, I actually got something new that I'm going to be unveiling pretty soon. I got a new cosplay in the works, so hopefully I get to reveal that at one of these upcoming events.
Going as Batman. Gotcha.
I'll unveil it when I unveil it. You got to follow me to find out.
Okay. When and where did you actually hear of this movie, Intruder?
I actually didn't hear about this movie until you had suggested it to us. I guess I have to catch up more on my 80s horror films, but...
What a poser.
I'm glad that you guys brought this to my attention, though. This movie, it hit all the marks for me that I'm usually looking for in a horror film. When I heard that it had to do with some of the people that worked on The Evil Dead 2, when I knew it was going to have Sam Raimi in there, it was going to have Bruce Campbell, I was like actually looking forward to really seeing this film, regardless of how much screen time they actually got for their names being on the cover. It was a bloody good time, man. It had the gore, it had everything I was looking for.
Yeah, this movie fell underneath my radar as well. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I mean, I've seen the movie poster many times. I've seen it on Shudder, scrolled right past it until you say, hey, let's check out this movie Intruder. So popped it in. I had a great time with this movie.
Wait, so you picked this movie, but you haven't seen it yet? Lay off the drugs, dude. Lay off that lay off those clown drugs.
Don't do drugs.
Oh, no.
Oh, don't you do it now. Don't do drugs.
No.
Sometimes it is best just picking something that you've never heard of, as long as you have like a familiar actor in there, a couple familiar faces. And that's what I usually do.
It's all good. It's all good. A lot of people actually haven't heard of this horror film, but that, like I said, we're here to help, to educate, especially you two, because you guys slept on it. Duh. But deep diving into this movie, it wasn't like a flyby kind of type thing. There's so much history on this. Actually, originally it was entitled The Night Crew. So it was filmed actually back in 1979 on a Super 8 film format. Who does that nowadays? You know what I mean? Nobody. Maybe little kids if they get their hands on it.
You're talking about the short film, right?
I'm talking about the short film. Yeah. I'm talking about The Night Crew, which was actually starred Sam Raimi, who was actually a cast member on that, while Bruce Campbell, Ash Williams himself, was actually the cameraman.
Oh, wow.
He was participating in it, but he wasn't in it.
See, they were putting together all those movies like The Evil Dead. They were doing a bunch of like college films back then. It could have been something they'd put together, something to do with it.
No, actually, yeah, they did. They actually filmed, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and Scott Steger, if I'm saying that correctly, over 70 short films. The Night Crew was one of them. And the film was actually shot after hours in a real life Walnut Lake market that Scott was actually working at the time. Like I said, it was only 20 minutes, but Scott actually lost the footage and it disappeared.
So they based this on a short film that disappeared?
Pretty much, yeah. And it was actually, the film was only like $100,000 for 20 minutes.
What?
That seems like a lot, don't you think?
Yeah, where'd all that budget go? Just renting out the store, or given like, I mean, if you worked at a store and you ask your boss like, "Hey, is it cool if I film a movie in here?" It's like, I'm pretty sure they'd want some good compensation for that.
Yeah, he just pocketed the money. But before we go further, gentlemen, as always, we're going to rate this film overall. We're going to do the kill count and the gore meter. So we're going to do it step by step, just like we always do. So we're going to fast forward to the actual movie itself. Unfortunately, they could not film originally where they did the short film, which was in Michigan. They needed to come down to LA to film it, which they actually did find a location, which was in, I think, where was it, Dimebag?
It was Bell, California.
Just
outside of Southgate. And if anybody's familiar with that area, it's like the southeast LA area. So you got Southgate, Maywood, Bell, Huntington Park.
The ghetto.
The ghetto. Hey, man, Slayer started out in Southgate, Huntington Park. So
I guess, yeah. So the store was already closed, but the manager was going on vacation for 2 weeks, and they go, "Hey, you want to film in here? You got 2 weeks to do it." Only charged them $2,500 for the entire 2 weeks, which is actually kind of unheard of nowadays. It was a cheap budget film, but I think we were saying it before we started recording. It was the end of the 80s, but it still had that Grimehouse kind of type feel, especially when it came to the cinematography.
Oh yeah, I was a big fan of the way this cinematography was done. It was the director, Scott Spiegel. I just kept giving him props the whole time I'm watching it. I really like some of the camera angles you got while watching this film. Right off the start, like when she's picking up the baskets, they kind of put the camera in the basket to give you that basket's point of view. When they're on the phone, you even got a telephone's point of view. And the same thing when she's sweeping up the floor. It's kind of like the camera's under the floor. It's like they really thought about all these camera angles when they were doing this one.
See, like those kind of utensils and equipment, they have feelings too. And I'm glad they I wanted to see the telephone's point of view. Intruder actually stars Dan Hicks. He's from the Evil Dead franchise, Evil Dead 2. And then we got Elizabeth Cox as the final girl, and Renee Estevez, who's actually the sister of Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez, which I didn't even know.
Emilio!
And you have Ted and Sam Raimi in this. I can't remember seeing Sam Raimi in a film, maybe in like cameos, but he was like in here for most of the film, of course, when he got butchered, though.
Yeah, he was in the film more than his brother Ted Raimi, and he's usually in lots of films, even if just a side character. This is the most I've seen of Sam as well.
Yeah, I've seen Ted Raimi more than Sam.
So, and you guys know what the budget on this film was?
I have a $130,000 budget on this
That's
movie.
still pretty cheap for a shitty movie.
Yeah, for 1989, that's pretty low.
So 1989 was a big year for just movies in general. You had Halloween 5, Pet Sematary, you had Ghostbusters 2, you had Friday the 13th Part 8, and big thing at the time was actually a live-action version of Batman. So this was nowhere near on anybody's radar.
It's crazy that this movie also came out in 89 from Full Moon Studios, if any of you guys caught that, the same year that their big title Puppet Master came out.
I think that was a reason that it only got limited release, or it didn't get released in theaters at all. It went straight to video at the time. Very hard to find a box office gross on this movie due to that reason.
A lot of those Full Moon films are the ones that you usually catch whenever you were going to the video store and you go into the horror section. A lot of those titles on those racks were from Full Moon Studios, and maybe they just they weren't able to get the budget to put them in the theaters, so they were just filling up those VHS shelves with them.
So actually, it was going to set for, I don't want to call it a big release, actually a theater release by Empire Studios. When they actually went bankrupt. This movie got shelved. You're right, it went direct to video, but it got slammed by the ratings board like hardcore. So they had to re-edit everything. Advertised in Gore Zone, it was advertised in Fangoria, like with these really gore scenes and deaths, and people got hyped about it. But when they rented the movie, all that stuff was cut out, and people were pretty pissed off about it.
Yeah, back at the time, those films, like, they would get sent straight to being rated X really easily. So by the time those things hit the shelves or out to the theatrical releases, they were like cut and censored very heavily.
Oh, it is a fucking surprise.
Yeah, I was looking up the Rotten Tomato score on it, and it doesn't even have a Rotten Tomato score. So obviously,
that's how bad it was.
Yeah. I mean, it has a 3 out of 10 on IMDb.
Damn!
You know, this was released actually in the top of the year. So it was actually released in January 27th, 1989. So it just came and went, and it just kind of faded away. Actually, horror movie lovers, it started to develop a cult following. Like I mentioned before, the rated R version, and it cut it out pretty much all the like gore scenes. Now that's actually hard to find, because back then they were bootlegging the unrated version, but now we can get that anywhere. You can't find the original cut, the first edit cut, anywhere. I don't know if it's actually worth any money, but you know, as a collector, I would want to own it.
This movie was actually pretty gory for being an R-rated movie. I mean, if you're saying there's one that's actually gorier than this out there, I mean, I would love to see that.
No. They cut out the rated R version. They actually cut out all the gore.
Oh, okay.
So you see things happen, but you don't see the follow through.
So the one that's released now, like on Shudder, that's the
unrated version.
Oh, okay.
Fully extended.
Everything was pretty much shot in one location, a supermarket. So you had a night crew actually just getting picked off. 2 of our main characters. One is by Dan Hicks, and I forgot the other store owner's name, the actor's name. I don't know if anybody caught that, but 2 store managers. One owns like 51%, and the other one I think owns like 48 or 49%. The one with the majority shareholder wants to sell the store. Obviously, everyone gets put out of a job and they get a severance package. Well, it's not like wham, bam, thank you, man. It just shit happens, and they happen really, really bad. Speaking of, let's start with that kill count, SoCal.
Kill count.
This film doesn't really have a large cast. So when it comes to the kill count, you know that a majority of these people are going to die. The kill count for this film, we got at 8. I mean, for the time, knowing that you're going to get as much gore as you're going to get, was actually really decent. It was a pretty good number.
especially in a movie that's only an hour and 23 minutes. That's a pretty good number.
So who was on the chopping list, so to speak, first?
So our first kill of the film, we got Linda, who's been spending a little bit too much time after hours. She has to go ahead and get home. She's in the parking lot, and then all of a sudden, a dark figure just shows up. You see a knife in the air.
Surprise, motherfucker.
The kill is off cam, and you don't get to really find out what happened to her later, but she is our first victim of this one.
I don't even remember what happened to her. That's how little I cared about her character.
Well, that one, you just see the knife coming down and then a knife going through the watermelon, cutting the watermelon in half.
Yeah. Yeah, it switches scenes to a watermelon being chopped and then just like gutted out in the most awkward type of way. So this dude could just reach right into the center of it and just start digging in.
So does that kind of compensate for something? Like the dude killed her, like gutted her?
See, I think it had to do with this like clever cutscenes that they did with the filming of this movie. Again, with these camera shots, it's like they wanted everything to blend well. There's a fight scene earlier in the film before this kill. And they wanted to make sure that you've seen every angle of everyone. Someone being grabbed, someone being punched. The person being punched, they like punch the camera screen. There's so many cuts in this movie, so many cut scenes. So I think this was just one more clever one they wanted to do. A stab and then bam, chopped up a watermelon.
So that's funny that you mentioned that because like Elizabeth Cox's character stalked by her like psycho ex-boyfriend. And I felt like that whole scene dragged, you know, I'm like, dude, market full of like employees can't take down one guy. And that guy, he wasn't really much of a fighter. And I just love how like, who was it? I think it was Ted Raimi, like pretty stupid in this movie. Just like he was walking down the aisle, hey guys, and then just all of a sudden, boom, he gets his ass kicked or something.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. That was one of the things that had me cracking up. Dude just walks down the aisle with a coffee in his hand, not even aware of what's going on. It's like, hey guys, what's the commotion? Blam, just knocked out right into a corner stack of popcorn, just flies everywhere.
Was that Ted or that was Sam Raimi, wasn't it?
That was Sam Raimi.
Yeah, because Ted Raimi doesn't even.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even know what's going on. First time you see him, he's like, yeah, I remember kicking his ass in high school. He's like, yeah, well, he's here today.
Yeah, Ted Raimi spent the majority of this film just in the back room with his headphones on. Like, he was so unaware.
Someone should cosplay him, but no one would ever get that.
I like when they lose their jobs and Sam Raimi wants to go back there to let him know. He's like, hey, we lost our jobs. And this dude's just still dancing away to his headphones. He has no idea.
Chopping up the produce.
That takes us to victim number 2, which would go to Danny. I guess the lead manager, the one that owns 51% of the store. He has a little bit of a disagreement with Bill earlier in the film, how he just wants to sell the store. He doesn't want to keep it. He doesn't care who the store goes to. So you just see him back there probably filling out his final tax form, sending out them checks to the employees when he gets attacked from behind. And then he just gets like lifted and just impaled on this, what is those things? Those nails that kind of hold file papers.
Yeah, like the moment you see that one thing, you're like, oh man, someone's getting their eye ripped out.
Yeah, I love how the camera shows that nail earlier and he just like keeps slamming papers on it. If you watch a lot of horror, you kind of catch on things like that's going to come into play later. And yeah, he just gets forced down right into the eye.
But it was funny because he was just like, no, stop. Like just how it just made me laugh. It was so fake. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's a movie, but still, I think he could put a little effort into it.
See, he had the best chance of being saved too, because he had the little microphone for the store. He tries pushing down it to call for help, but I guess they got just faulty wiring and that thing just sounds like a screech. Everybody hears it. They just ignore it. And he's just down there getting murdered. The thing I like is after he does get impaled by that nail, you see the blood drip down and it drips onto the lamp that had fallen on the floor, filling the bulb with blood. And you just see this red light shining up.
It was actually a pretty good scene with the cinematography on that. It was pretty cool.
Definitely.
Well, if eye horror, man, that's a soft point for me. Anything that's going into an eye or Achilles heels being torn out, you know, I cringed on that one.
You're like, I'm out.
Yeah. I was like, oh God.
Not that I want to get stabbed in the eye, but I'd rather get stabbed in the eye than, what is worse than that? Probably taking it to the balls or something, you know?
Stabbed in the dick like Terrifier 2.
Oh, yeah, no. At that point, I was like, no, I'm out. Just finish me.
Finish him.
At this point of the film, Jennifer's boyfriend Craig has been kicked out of the store after fighting, but this dude's just lingering outside, staring in through the windows. He's calling the store. He's harassing Jennifer still from outside. Eventually he gets back in and he's just stalking around this door somewhere. As these people are dying, you're just kind of getting the idea that it must be Craig. He's the one behind all this.
Yeah, this false sense of like, oh yeah, this guy did it.
I mean, the movie's Intruder, right? And he's just some guy that barged his way in. So I'm like, hey, there he is. There's the intruder.
Right there, roll credits, right?
He's this hardcore biker guy, you know, punk dude. Just gives that image of, yeah, this guy's going to be a killer. He's got that crazy, he just got out of jail. He's got that crazy look. Oh yeah, definitely the killer.
And I'll see movies back then too. It's like, as long as the guy is wearing a leather jacket and has long hair, you're like, oh, he's a
bad
troublemaker.
news. Yeah, he's bad news.
He's a punk.
Damn punks.
What about Kill 3?
Kill 3. We got Ted Raimi, who's been in the back of the store this whole time, like I said, listening to his headphones, just dancing around while he got all these warning signs around him saying, warning, sharp knives, danger. He's just listening to his music. You just see a knife go in the air and then slam right into the back of his head. And I really like this scene because it shows it from the front. You can't see the figure behind him. It's just shadowed. You see the blood start to pour out from the top of his head and his headphones actually snap in half, which is great. The music
sucks. He had nothing to do. Like, I was kind of bummed when he died. I was like, dude, he wasn't even involved in any of this shenanigans, and yet he gets a fucking kitchen knife to the back of the head.
Yeah, he was the only one just doing his job. Everyone else was like stealing things, making out with people. He was the only one.
Drinking beer.
And even when you first see him there, the guy asks, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Working." He was the only guy working in that movie.
Dimebag was working there. He'd be right there in the beer section. Just
hell yeah.
I'm a taste tester. Hold on.
Yeah, got to taste every 6-pack.
There was nothing to add to this scene. It was pretty straightforward. At this point, like I said, that part was just to start to add the body count in a little quicker.
Which brings us on to our next kill. Since we were just talking about that with Dimebag drinking some beers in the cooler, we got Tim, who you see back there. He's stocking the cooler. He's been stocking the beer this whole time. This dude's killed like a whole 6-pack. You see him downing cans, dropping the empty ones on the floor.
Dude, he lost his job. Like, what are they going to do? Fire him?
Exactly. Go out with a bang, man.
So he's just there, down in his can. Once again, you just kind of see that dark figure come out of the darkness here with a knife while he's like got the can up, not even looking straight. He gets stabbed right in the gut, falls back right onto this stack of cans, which is just generically labeled beer. And you just see blood squirt out and beer squirt out, which I appreciate they added the detail of, well, if it stabbed through them, then it would stab the beer cans and they should burst too.
Well, you guys are probably too young to remember back in the 80s when they had those generic beer and chips. All it was a white bag with a blue label. It just said beer, chips.
I would think I was in junior high, and I was living in Anaheim at the time, and I went to the market with my dad, and that was the first time I actually saw, I want to say Albertsons. And yeah, it was just generic, and it was white and just said beer. And then my dad looks over and goes, that is so basic. He goes, you know what? I want to try that just to see how it tastes, you know? I don't remember if he ever picked it up and drank it, but I was like, I don't know why, but I always thought, and it stuck with me today. I'm like, you know what? When I get older, I want to try that. But I guess they don't make it anymore.
Well, they ought to bring that back. That was awesome.
Just beer.
I mean, they bring back the classic Coke cans, the classic Pepsi can. Just bring back the classic beer can.
So at the 99-cent store. Screw it.
I bought beer at the 99-cent store. Some of it actually, it's called, I don't know if it's called Buddha beer, but yeah, that shit's strong, dude. I was like, whoa.
I would expect anything from the 99-cent store to just be weak and ineffective.
Hey, that's what this movie reminded me of. Like, it had that like 99-cent store feel, other than it wasn't purple. Cause you know how all of those are kind of just like grungy and ghetto looking. So it fits right up with this movie.
There was a reason why he was getting rid of the store. Which brings us to our next kill. We got Bub. The like what? Generic kind of California surfer dude with a whoa, what's up guys? Hey, what's going on? Kind of thing. He's in the back. He's crushing boxes in the compressor. He's hearing some noises around him. He's thinking it's his buddy Dave, and he's calling out to him like, "Bro, you better leave me alone, man. I'm doing my job."
What? Dave, man, stop playing around.
You can clearly see the killer through the cage. I don't know how he doesn't see it.
He was smoking way too much weed, that's why.
Man, I'm far too baked for this.
And this movie doesn't even try too hard to hide who the killer is if you're really paying attention. You see the silhouette quite a few times. Dude goes back to crushing boxes. Out comes the killer. Just straight, he just grabs him by the throat, just kind of slams him onto the box compressor, and hits that thing going down. And you can just hear this dude screaming while the camera angle closes in on his face. First we get the head, just kind of like crushing out blood when it starts to crush through the forehead. But before it makes a complete squeeze, we actually get a head explosion in this film, which is a rare occurrence, and I always enjoy to see a head explosion.
Love the head explosions.
You know, I think the worst part about that scene was just like, you're right, is just he's screaming. So as it finally compresses on his head, in that moment where he doesn't scream anymore, you just hear all these like crushing like sounds. It was a little hard to watch, but it was fun though.
See, they rented out this store. They borrowed their box compressor, and then they just put all this fake blood all over it.
I bet you when the manager came back from vacation, he was like, "What the fuck were you guys doing?"
And they had to have a really good cleaning crew after that movie.
Yeah, of course, if you wanted to sell the property.
And now the next kill in this film. We got old Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi's in the back. I believe he's just cutting up some meat. He's the butcher of the store, so he's just doing his job back there. And his kill, honestly, is very, like, it should have been more gory. It should have been more, I don't know what's a better word for it, but it was just boring. He's just kind of, like, standing there and just kind of gets, like, choke slam, like, grabbed around the throat, lifted up into the air, and just put on a random meat hook, and that just instantly kills him. I don't feel like that was really believable.
To quote Zom, I mean, come on. You gotta turn your brain off for this kind of stuff.
I had heard that the kill was supposed to be different. I believe he was supposed to be the one that was cut into like the meat grinder, but it was actually his brother Ted Raimi, which suggested just putting him on a simple meat hook and saying, "Hey, I think that would be pretty funny." And they just chose to go with that idea.
I don't know how that would have been funny though. Unless like it's an inside joke for both of them.
Could have been funny because they were aware that Tobe Hooper was set to direct this film originally. So meat hooks. Could have been an idea. All right. Earlier in the film, we got Dave making out with Jen, just like all over the checkout stand. They're not even trying to be discreet. They're just like making a big old bunch of groans, bunch of moans, bunch of laughs.
He's like, "I want ass already. Just give it to me."
This dude's having a good day. So he gets his, he goes to the back and is met with a meat cleaver to the head.
Nice.
This dude just falls down, bleeding from the head, and he is dragged on the floor while he is just screaming. Well, there goes those camera angles again, just showing you from the killer's perspective, dragging this guy. You see the meat cleaver on the floor, and I'm like, "Bro, grab the meat cleaver. What are you doing?"
I'm running the opposite way, or I'm not going to pick it up.
He was grabbing for it.
You see his hand. His hand does run over it. I think he didn't even know it was there. When he felt it, he's like, "Oh, I should probably play into this." And he just like barely tries to grab it. It just slips right out. And he just continues to like scream, "What are you doing? Hey, stop dragging me. Hey, bro, what's going on?" He gets dragged all the way, I guess, across the whole back room to the meat slicer. Yeah, you already know what's about to happen. This guy knows what's about to happen.
Kill the night.
Let me stop you guys right there. Now, the fact that he dragged him from the front of the store all the way, don't you think he would have had plenty of time? Like, I'd be knocking shit down just to get my hands on something. No, he's like, "Oh, just drag me." Like, no effort whatsoever. This guy deserved to die, man. Like, Jesus Christ. If I was fighting for my life, I'm going to fight for my life.
One of the more refreshing things about this movie, though, when he's about to get his head put into that meat grinder, this dude is screaming bloody murder. This dude's hitting the highest octaves that I could never even, I mean, who knows? Maybe if I'm on that position, maybe I will too. I got to give this guy the Scream King Award because you never see Scream Kings out there too much.
That kill was definitely a kill tonight on that one. When you see the blade just go right through the cheek, out through the other cheek. Cutting his face right in half.
Pre-Terrifier.
Yeah, so, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
And
it was like 30 years later.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, the actor that was playing that character, so they did a mock-up, obviously, jail dummy and stuff like that. So when they finally shot that scene, the actor looks over and goes, "My mother can never see this movie."
Oh, yeah.
You know, the people on set, the film crew, like some of them were like crying, and even some threw up because it was just, I guess it felt this sense of realism for them because they were just like, oh, you know, and then the director was just like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing?
You know what made it good was the practical effects. That's what allowed them to see the head being chopped on camera without cutting away the entire time. They had that prop dummy head that looked, 8 out of 10, looked pretty much like him. They included in those screams.
Yeah, it was a pretty good dummy head.
Yeah, and that, like I said, it was K&B Studios, special effects company, who did that, and they did really well for a low-budget movie. Definitely.
And you just see those meat chunks flying everywhere on the inside. So while that face is being grinded in, I guess those chunks are flying into the blade and just flying all against the wall. It is what looks like could have been an inspiration towards Terrifier.
And speaking of K&B Studios, was this Greg Nicotero's first outing as far as special effects, or did he work before this?
I think little projects, but yeah, like they were all three of them. Kurtman. So they just jumped at the chance because they wanted to make a name for themselves. So it was pretty much their major motion picture debut.
Yeah, that kill definitely has to be my favorite of the whole film. It was just the most gruesome. It felt the most real. I know in the last review we did about Night School, we felt that the screams the victims were giving were just not realistic enough. That one seemed real to me.
As far as the kills between this kill and the guy getting crushed in the box crusher, definitely kills in the night for me. Just the price of the movie right there. Just those two kills.
That was like half the budget right there, right?
Right?
So now at this point of the film, most of the characters are dead. You're seeing them die at an average of about 7 minutes. Each, and then they're dying. Another kill comes at you. So now you got your final girl, Jennifer. After she discovers her first body, she just starts running through the store, and just every single murder that's happened in this store, she's like running on a path that is connecting her to every single death that has happened in here. She picked the worst route to run through this store.
She's like running down the aisle. Oh.
Yeah, just right into another body. I'm going to go hide in the cooler, right into another body. She finally feels that she should go to the entrance. She hears somebody at the door. It's just a customer. Someone trying to shop for some reason at, 12 o'clock at night, thinks he can go grab some bread. She wants to go get help. By the time she gets here, the guy just leaves. So now she's like, well, now what am I going to do? Killer's behind me, looking out the door, waiting for something. And then finally, someone comes, and she feels so relieved. It's a delivery guy. You guys remember the bread man?
Yeah.
Yes, that's actually the director of the film.
That is the director. That is Scott Spiegel. He's coming here to deliver some bread, and you think, okay, cool. Maybe she's finally going to get some help.
But the guy in the car, did you know who that was? That was none other than Greg Nicotero himself.
Oh, wow.
Making a cameo in the movie himself.
Did you actually know the police officers, those two old guys, were actually from Green Acres?
Green Acres is the place to be. Farm living is the life for me. Land spreading out so far and wide. Keep Manhattan just.
Not that I've ever watched the show, but yeah, they did their little cameo.
Oh, that's cool.
I know. When they called the cops, I felt like they got like the oldest cops on the force.
They're like, go check it out.
It's like, wait, that's not my card. Oh, wait, here's my card. Here's my card.
You know who they reminded me? They reminded me of the two buffoon cops in Halloween 5. Just a lot older.
Which actually came out the same year as this one.
Yeah, it did. Oh, coincidence? I don't know. Could have been their dads.
So the bread guy goes ahead. He gets stabbed. right in the back. You just see blood squirt onto the door, and there is our killer on the outside, which is revealed to be Bill.
I'm just crazy about store.
He just loves the damn store. He wants to kill everybody inside because he loves it so much. I don't know if he feels that that'll help him keep it or what, but
this store should go over well.
I actually like the fact, so obviously when he gets revealed as the killer, okay, in the beginning of the film, he's like this easygoing guy and someone you could trust. And then by the time the end of the film, he's like batshit crazy, like a total like changing character. The fact this guy's walking around with a severed head, eating a sandwich, not caring. He's like, I'm going to kill this bitch, you know? It's pretty fucking hilarious if you think about it. I don't know. Not that I would like hack anybody up for barbecue, but that's something I would do. But I'd probably eat pizza instead of a sandwich, though.
And also, if you pay attention to the movie poster, it actually shows Bill as being the killer in the movie poster.
There was no sense of, I guess, suspense when you find out because you're just like, oh, well, we already knew that.
Even the original VHS case, when this was released and put on the shelves, had like that same image where they were giving away who the killer was just by looking at the cover.
No shock value there whatsoever.
They actually had a big picture of Linda on the back too, thinking that she was going to be like the final girl of the film. She was the first one to go. So, I mean, I guess that's the only shock factor you got off of that cover.
So like I said earlier in the beginning, the bootleg version, I mean, you can only find the rated R version, but it wasn't until 2005 where they actually released the uncut version. So it took how many years before we finally got the original cut?
25, 26 years?
Yeah, something like that. The original runtime, the rated R version was 83 minutes, and then the uncut version was 88 minutes. Yes, it was only by a few minutes, but those few minutes actually count.
Those few minutes really put together the movie.
All right, Dimebag, so we're going to go to you, and you got to give us that sweet, sweet gore meter.
Gore.
What do you give it?
I'm going to give it a solid 5. I give it 5 meat cleavers straight to the head.
What about you, SoCal?
With my gore meter, my first initial idea was to give this a 5 out of 5. But upon watching it a second time, the gore is really good. What you get is really good, but you just don't get a lot of it. You don't get enough. I feel like there's only 2 really gory kills in this film. So for the overall gore for me, it would just have to be a 4.5, which is still a great score.
You see, Dimebag, he was spoiled by Art the Clown and Terrifier. That's why he changed it. You young punks, even though you're only a few years younger than us, but you're still a punk.
Did we mention that cameo by Bruce Campbell in this movie? Even though he's in the movie for only a minute.
And he was actually, advertised when this movie kind of came out, starring Bruce Campbell, but he's only in it for like 20 seconds. No matter what they do, he always has a job. So for the gore meter for me, I'm probably going to have to give it a 4. Like you said, those 2 real standout scenes was the bandsaw and what the hell is that called? The box cutter? No, the
box crusher.
The box crusher, yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I worked with one for years and I don't even know what the fuck it's called.
You are one dumb son of a bitch.
But other than that, they were kind of just, I don't want to say generic or basic, but they kind of were. It's something we've seen in Friday the 13th, Halloween, even Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it wasn't really anything new, except for like the bandsaw and the box crusher. The fact that you get to see it on screen as it's happening was pretty freaking cool.
And SoCal, you have the guy that did the soundtrack. I'm not sure what the name was again.
Okay, that's that. I'm glad you brought this up. The person who did the music, his name is Basil Polidorus. I really love the soundtrack of this film. They gave these impactful moments to parts of the film that you maybe didn't feel necessary for it to be. Touching moment sounds when it wasn't really necessary, when Jennifer's giving her story of why her and Craig broke up. And you just hear like this soft little kind of like music in the background after she's like, and he murdered a man. Ding, 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 ding. Who did the music for this film? I got to check this out. This guy also made the music for RoboCop and Starship Troopers. All of those sequels.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Did he do for the original RoboCop or just the sequels?
The original RoboCop.
Hell yeah, which we will review at some later point in time.
But this soundtrack definitely had a Psycho-esque theme to it with the piano. in some parts, and then the kills, it just crescendoed up. That's what I loved about the soundtrack.
Yeah, sorry, fellas. I didn't really give a shit about the soundtrack. It didn't really, like, move me. I mean, it's cool if you guys liked it, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. I mean, it was just kind of like there. It added suspense, but for the overall movie, I wanted to see the kills.
We all know the Evil Dead 2 has a lot of comedic moments. Was there any moments of this film that really just stood out for you because it was just so funny? Because one of the ones that's for me that just made me laugh both times I watched it was when Bub's telling his story to Jennifer, and he's talking about how his dad almost beat him to death. And he's like, yeah, my dad, he almost beat me to death with a blender. And she's like, a blender? And he's like, yeah, a Hamilton Beach blender. Like, he remembers the brand.
But why would you even say that? Like, just in general conversation, yeah, my dad almost beat me with a blender. I'm like, okay, that's a real conversation starter.
And the story that Bill puts out there about the guy, cuts the guy's head off. He's got the head in one hand, the sandwich in the other. Yeah, you actually got that from Raising Arizona. They use that same story in Raising Arizona. The character's name in Raising Arizona is actually Bill. So,
all right, fellas. So this episode is going to wrap. So before we finish, overall rating. I'm gonna start with you, SoCal Leatherface.
The overall rating for me for this film, it was a really good one. I'd never seen this before, but I'm really glad I did. Like I said again, when it had to do with people that put together the Evil Dead 2, I knew I was going to enjoy it. It delivered exactly what I was expecting. Some comedy, some hardcore violence, some laughs, lots of blood. It did everything I wanted it to do. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
What about you, Dime?
I would have to agree with SoCal. I would give it a 4.5. Just the workmanship between Greg Nicotero and the Raimis being together, Scott Spiegel, great director. It was just a fun movie to watch. You want to turn off your brain and just go watch a great horror movie.
Zom would hate this because he never turns off his brain. So for me, overall, it's about a 4. I mean, I'm glad they finally released it. It like I said, it just has a cult following. And I don't even think the normies still don't even know what Evil Dead is. I mean, yeah, because of the new movies coming out, but that hardcore fan base loves the Evil Dead. But like I said, they're probably never going to even hear of this movie unless it was like an Amaze at Halloween Horror Nights, which I highly, highly doubt it.
And imagine if this film never got that extended cut that was released and we just watched the theatrical one that was released to VHS. This movie definitely would have gotten way less of a score if it cut out all of that gore.
Yeah, if all the kills were off camera, yeah, it would have been like probably a 3.
Oh, kind of like Night School, right?
Exactly. See, I was able to forgive the first kill being off cam with Linda because she does come later in the film. The body does show up again. So at least, you know, it did happen off cam, but you do see the body later and it does play a good role. That's the knife that Jennifer uses to stab Bill, just dead in the chest. And another funny moment, after he gets stabbed, he's just like, where'd you get the knife? Falls down on his back. The knife pops out of his chest and lands in a box next to him. It's just, what?
No, I noticed that. That was pretty funny.
All right, freaks, geeks, gals, and ghouls, that comes to an end for the final guys right here on Corpses for Conversation. For me, Toxic J, along with my horror buddies for life, SoCal Leatherface, and Dimeback Daryl. Where can we find you guys on social media?
Dimeback Daryl.
Oh, from the grave?
Back from the grave.
Dimeback the Clown. Where can we find you guys on social media?
Back Daryl, go for it.
Now, you can find me at Dimebag the Clown, Dimebag with a Y on Instagram.
And for me, SoCal Leatherface, you can find me on Instagram. Just look up SoCal Leatherface, all just one word.
And for me, just Corpses for Conversation. That's about it. So like, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, whatever you do. Listen to us on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, VHS, floppy disk, whatever. Just subscribe, like, support. Wishing you a very ghoulish night. Dimebag, hit that eject button.